Hi everyone, welcome to Scholastic Parents live from our library, and today our topic is Wanna Laugh? Funny Books for All Ages. And one of the reasons that we wanted to focus on this month is because it is National Humor Month, and also in our Kids and Family Reading Report, one of the results that we found is that when children and parents are looking for a book to read for fun, 42% of parents and 37% of children are looking for books that make them laugh or make their child laugh. And I like these kind of books, of course. Sometimes, when you're reading while you're commuting and you laugh out loud on the subway, everybody might look at you or something like that, but it's just something that's a real fun experience to have as a reader. So the first thing that I pulled out here is this tiny little book. It's called Jokes to Go. And I pulled it out because when I cataloged this book, I think about a year ago or so, I just couldn't resist reading it and texting. This is a book, cell phone jokes for you and your friends. It's got a bunch of jokes that you could text to people. So I figured I would ask you one of the questions from this book, which I texted to my whole family, and then see if maybe by the end of the broadcast somebody's come up with the answer. So the one that sticks in my mind is, what do you call the security guards at a Samsung store? All right, so usually I like to start with some of my favorites. So this is my childhood favorite that I brought out. This one is There's Treasure Everywhere. It's a Calvin and Hobbes treasury. Calvin and Hobbes is by Bill Watterson. I know that you guys love this too. There are so many. This is just one of the beat up ones that I brought from my house, and I had to squeeze it in my bag, so I curled it a little bit, but that's okay. And I wanted to share with you a story. Some of my friends and I, about 10 years ago, there was a snowstorm, and we went outside and we built one of the Calvin and Hobbes, like those famous snow sculptures, and we made it look like my friend's Volvo had run over a snowman, and so we had, just the top two balls of the snowman underneath, and a snowman leaning over like, oh my God, and another one across the driveway pointing. And we lived on a kind of a big thoroughfare, so a lot of people were stopping and taking pictures. So that's something fun that you could do, when I know we're getting into summer, but you could do is try to recreate a Calvin and Hobbes snow sculpture tableau with your children. So Calvin and Hobbes, favorite. Put this over here. And then the other one that I brought out that's one of my favorites is called Reads Well with Others, and this is one of the treasuries from, it's called an Unshelved, it's from a group called Unshelved, and you may have noticed sometimes I wear funny t-shirts, a lot of them I get from these guys. It is a comic about a library in Mallville, and the head librarian, or not the head, but the teen librarian, which is what I used to be, is a snarky young man named Dewey, and it's just a really funny, even if you're not a librarian, just the interactions between people and patrons and the library staff, I think is something that'll make you laugh if you enjoyed Dilbert or anything like that. So this is really funny, and they have several other books in the series. All right, so those are my favorites. So I want to start off for the youngest age. I pulled 3 books by the same person, and I actually have a lot of books by Jim Benton to talk to you today. I think he's hilarious, so it's a big Jim Benton day. These are board books for the pre-K age, and the first one I have here is 5 Stinky Socks. And then the second one I have is Robot Kitties. And then the third one, Where Did All the Dinos Go? And I think I actually noticed as I was going through all these books, something about humor books, they're really funny and bright and colorful and stuff like that. And Jim Benton just has a knack, whether he's writing a longer book, which I'll show you later, or he's writing something that's short and quick, of just kind of hitting the nail on the head with humor for kids. And he also has a lot of rhyming going on, so I'm just going to start a little bit of this one. It said, where did all the dinos go? Some say they vanished long ago, but I'll bet if we take a look, we just might find some in this book. So it's also National Poetry Month, so funny poetry is always something that I think kids get a kick out of. So some Jim Benton now for the pre-K age. And then going into, I guess, pre-K as a class, 1st grade, 2nd grade, many of you are probably familiar with Captain Underpants and Dog Man and stuff like that from Dave Pilkey, but I brought out one of my favorite Dave Pilkeys, which is the Dumb Bunny series. And this particular one is The Dumb Bunnies Go to the Zoo. I love these little medal he has on here. It says this book is too dumb to win an award, but Dave Pilkey definitely deserves an award for the work that he does. And in this one in particular, they go to the zoo and they misinterpret all kind of things. They set all of the animals free. They end up trying to take some animals home with them. And at the end, they're laying in the bed with a sprinkler kind of watering them, and they say good morning before they go to sleep. So it's just a really funny book that I think will make children laugh out loud, get them to laugh very hard. And then I have these two. This is The Day the Crayons Quit, and the sequel, The Day the Crayons Come Home, by Drew DeWalt and Oliver Jeffers. And these books have been burning up the New York Times bestseller list for picture books. If you've seen, you may have seen them there. They are hilarious. I mean, just extremely funny. The crayons are writing letters to the young man who owns them, I forget his name, and they are complaining, for example, the blue crayon feels like he's overused, and say like the red crayon and blue crayon get used a lot. There are some crayons that feel like they're not used enough, and then the yellow crayon and the orange crayon are engaged in an argument about which one is the appropriate color to use for the sun. And then when you get to the day that the crayons came home, it actually features some of the, I don't want to call them secondary colors, but other colors in the crayon box that, like magenta and things like that, that you may not use as frequently as the ones that come in a basic crayon box. And this one also features some glow in the dark. So this is a fun one. All right, so we're gonna take a look. Wait, let me do one more and then I'll see if we have any questions. This is the end of K to K12. And this book is called The Other Side of Town. Now I'm holding it this way. It looks like it's the front or the back of the book. This looks like the front of the book. They intentionally kind of flipped it. So this is the cover, but it's on the back. And in this book, this guy here, he calls a cab in New York City and he tells the guy that he wants him to take him to the other side of town. There's all of these names of places that sound similar to places in New York, but they're places on the other side of town. So the cabbie takes him and they get to a blank wall. Reminds me of Harry Potter, where he hits a remote and then something opens up in the wall. It's the Schminken Tunnel instead of the Lincoln Tunnel, and he goes through and he gets to the other side of town, where all kinds of things are zany and crazy, and there's a, what do they call it? Instead of a traffic jam, I'll remember later, but like this is their depiction of the Brooklyn Bridge on the other side of town. Now this is a fun book, and this one is by John Ajit. All right, so then let's see. Before we get to 3, 4, and 5, what questions we've got. All right, so from Rachel Phillips, any suggestions for 2nd, 3rd graders? All right, I'm about to get right into that. And then we had a question actually before we started from Heather Gavin. It was funny books for a 1st grade boy who reads at a 4th grade level. So I'm just about to get into that age range. So for 2nd, 3rd, I did K1 too. So it's the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I've got this one, The Bully from the Black Lagoon. And this is a story by Mike Thaler and illustrated by Jared Lee. And this one is just kind of emblematic of the overall series. There's also The Teacher from the Black Lagoon, The Librarian from the Black Lagoon, which is a favorite one here, The Gym Class from the Black Lagoon, The Gym Teacher from the Black Lagoon, and there's an entire series that you can go. And these actually are books that we put these out, I think, starting in the 70s or 80s. I have to go back and look in the archive if I should have pulled one of the oldest ones for you. But they continue to be popular. And you can also, I think, just like with the other one I was talking about with Calvin and Hobbes, it's an opportunity to try to make up your own story about something that's from the Black Lagoon, which could be fun and interesting. All right, so still with 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, I've got this entire set. So before I was talking about Jim Benton, one of my favorites, I had the board books. And these are some of the ones that I've spent the most time looking at with my nieces. This is the Dear Dumb Diary, excellently hilarious box set. But the reason I pulled out the whole thing was because I just wanted to read you some of the titles. They just tell you or show you how funny these books are. So the first one is, number 1, Let's Pretend This Never Happened. Number 2, My Pants Are Haunted. Number 3, Am I the Princess or the Frog? Number 4, Never Do Anything, Ever. Number 5, Can Adults Become Human? Number 6, The Problem with Here is that it's where I'm from, which I think is just, I love that title so much. Number 7, never underestimate your dumbness. Number 8, it's not my fault, I know everything. Number 9, that's what friends aren't for. And number 10, the worst things in life are also free. So these are just from the first year. There's a Dear Dumb Diary year 2 also. My niece and I, when we would read these, we would just crack up. And I think I may have actually mentioned on Facebook Live before, she thinks that there's about 2 jokes per page average for Jim Benton. So highly recommended. All right, and then the last one I have there in that age group is Where the Sidewalk Ends, right? So it's National Poetry Month, and you know there are other books by Shel Silverstein. I actually was thinking about putting this as one of my favorites. You know, A Light in the Attic is another one that I love, and these poems are just hilarious, funny. I actually used to use them as a teacher to teach different poetic devices, so things that had to do with end rhyme, internal rhyme, assonance, dissonance, consonants, all of those different kind of things. And you don't have to go into that. You can just, you know, read the funny poems like Cynthia Sylvia Snout, Would Not Take the Garbage Out. One of my favorite ones is Clooney the Clown. There's another one called Nobody that starts, nobody loves me, nobody cares, nobody buys me peaches and pears, where it's kind of like, is nobody a real person or is nobody an imaginary being? So, and I actually can't remember if those poems that I mentioned are the ones that are in here, but any of Shel Silverstein's books of poetry and The Giving Tree are all excellent books and hilarious poetry. So here. All right, so moving from K1 and 2 to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Oh no, I just did 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, sorry. K1, 2, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Moving to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I think that for the person who mentioned that their son reads at a higher grade level, this first one that I have might be interesting. This is James Patterson, I Funny. And then there's another one, I Funnier, and then there's the third one, I Totally Funniest. And these books are funny, they're funny books on their own, but then the story is about a character who wants to be a stand-up comedian. But the catch is that he's a young man who's in a wheelchair. So he, you know, is kind of trying to figure out how to get it so that when people see him on stage and he's competing in this big competition, that they look past the fact that he's in a wheelchair and hear his jokes and stuff like that. And he obviously continues to progress with this. And James Patterson is a very popular author for adult and children. He also has Middle School, The Worst Years of My Life, and stuff like that, which might be interesting. And I think that somebody who is in 1st or 2nd grade or reads at a higher level might be able to would enjoy these. In fact, if I just kind of flip through it, you can see that the text is not super dense and there's a lot of illustrations and stuff like that, so it might be a good transition for someone who's coming out of reading picture books. All right, and then the other one. So this is The Madman of Piney Woods by Christopher Paul Curtis. And this is not quite a sequel, but it's a second book in the Buxton trilogy. The first book is called Elijah of Buxton. And Elijah of Buxton is about a community in Canada where slaves, when they ran away and got to Canada, it's one of the first communities that was set up. And Elijah is the first person who's born into this community free. And this one, The Madman of Piney Woods, takes place about 40 years later, so it's in the same world, but it's not the exact same story continuing. And the thing about Christopher Paul Curtis is that he finds a way of making you laugh out loud, bringing tears to your eyes, and then also he'll teach you something. So in this particular book, I learned about coffin ships, which is a situation with Irish who were immigrating to Canada and they couldn't get off of some of the ships that they came on because of a sickness or illness that was, they didn't want them to kind of come off and get, bring that onto land. So there were people, the young man here, his grandmother, who was on the boat for months, that were just kind of held there before they could immigrate and become Canadians. And I had never heard of that. So Christopher Paul Curtis, after you read one of his books, you find yourself looking something up to learn a little bit more about what he kind of taught you in the book. And all of his books are hilarious, as well as educational. The Watsons Go to Birmingham is probably one of the most famous ones he's done. I do want to remind you that we're going to have this list available on Scholastic Parents on the blog, so that you can see all of these and pick them out, get them for yourself. So then I have this book here, Restart by Gordon Corman, and you may remember that I've mentioned him before. He's one of my favorite authors, so I just want to show these real quick. This is one of his very first books. I got this from the archive downstairs. This Can't Be Happening at McDonald Hall. It's part of the Bruno and Boots series, and this is one of the books that he wrote when he was 13, 14 years old. Hilarious. Set at a boarding school with a lot of hijinks. And then these are two other books that I've read of his, Ungifted and Slacker, that came out in the past couple of years. My favorite book by him is called I Want to Go Home, and it's set at a sleepaway camp. But this book is the one that he's just come out with this year. It's called Restart. It's about a young man who is kind of the school bully, and he ends up falling, hitting his head, and he experiences amnesia. So he can't remember anything about his life prior to waking up in the hospital. And then when he goes to school now to return back to his stomping grounds, everyone around him is kind of looking at him. Maybe they kind of flinch when he comes near them, and then the people who are his friends and other bullies are giving him pounds and encouraging him to do mean things. But his personality's kind of changed because he doesn't have the context from before to understand why he was like that. And so much like Gordon Corman's other books, there are lots of different characters in the school that are hilarious. The perspective switches. There's a big crescendo at the end with a hilarious scene. Kind of reminds me of an Adam Sandler movie, the way his books kind of come together with a big ridiculous scene at the end. And it was a very, very funny book. I got the chance to meet him this year, which was exciting for me. So before we get to high school stories, let's see what questions we've got. Okay. Michaela Patterson, can you put a list of the books up? Yes, we will absolutely put it up, and it's exciting. Our little ones love to read. Theresa Nolan, my daughter lives the Warrior books. She's read them all. What is another series along the same lines? I believe that the Warrior books, I think, is that Aaron Hunter? They're the ones with the cats. She may enjoy Guardians of Ga'Hoole, which is a series, fantasy series around the same age range, and it features owls. There's what's this? I know my library mentor Vonda would be telling me there's a book with a mouse that maybe it'll come to me as I sit here. But my first recommendation would be the Gardens of Ga'Hoole, and then hopefully the second one will come back to my mind. All right, Amy Goslar, what's the best joke book for a 6-year-old boy? There are a lot of different joke books that are out there. I know that there are always the kind of 101 President jokes. I think that for a 6-year-old, I'm trying to debate if it's too soon, but the Mad Libs books are always a good thing for people to do early on, because I was a teacher, so I like them because they are learning the different parts of speech as well as making up funny stories, and it's interactive. So 6 years old is probably about first, second grade, and it's a good learning opportunity to go over what is a noun, it's a person, place, or thing, what is an adjective, it's a describing word, and go through that with them and help them to make some funny stories. So I think that Mad Libs or any kind of joke books, but Mad Libs actually would probably be my first recommendation. And then Beverly Tubbs, what would be a good book for a child 13 years old dealing with being a sibling to an autistic child older than him? So it's not a funny book, although there are some funny moments. There's a series, the first book I think is called Al Capone Does My Shirts, and the second one is called Al Capone Does My Homework. It's I cannot remember the author off the top of my head, but I will put it in the comment section. And in that story, a young man has an older sister who I believe is autistic, and they are, what's the name of that island? I'm blanking on the name. Alcatraz. And so his father is a guard, a sort of security guard on Alcatraz, and he goes to live there. And he takes a ferry with the other kids that live on Alcatraz to go to school every day. When they get to school, some of the kids are, they know that it's set in the time when Al Capone was there, and so they're always trying to see if there are ways that they can connect or like get something from him or see him walking around in the prison yard. But he, also has this older sister that he's very protective of and takes care of her, and there's a whole plot that goes on with what experiences that she's having living on the island, and they really have to depend on each other, the two of them, because there's just a few people that are actually living there full time. And then let's see, books for a 6-year-old boy. Teaching a kid what dyslexia is. That's an excellent question from Stacy Myers-Varner. I will have to think about that and put that into the comments section for you. Book. I know, I got my mind is working trying to figure it out too. All right, so the last group of books that I've got before we go, and we'll check and see if there are any more questions at the end, are books for high schoolers and adults as well. And the thing about these books, this first one I have is here, is Kill the Boy Band by Goldie Moldavsky, is that the humor, I think, kind of switches sometimes from the kind of laugh out loud to some kind of snarky humor, which I do still find myself laughing at times. And this one, I love this one. It's set here in Soho in New York City, and these girls are in love with a particular boy band. They figure out a way to stay at the hotel where these guys are staying the night that they're there, and a whole series of craziness ensues. Now, one of the things that I love about it in particular is that it all takes place during one night. I love, movies and books where it's really fast-paced and there's a lot of action and things happening in different places. It's kind of like a puzzle piece, and then everything, kind of comes together at the end, but it's all over a sequence of 24 hours or one night or something like that. So, Kill the Boy Band by Goldie Moldavsky is hilarious. This next one I have is also kind of like a dark humor, snarky humor. This is called The Death of Bees by Lisa O'Donnell. I think that teens and adults would like this. And the way that this starts is these two young women, their parents have died, and they have buried them in the backyard. And they can't let anybody know that their parents are dead. Their parents are kind of painted as irresponsible parents, who are not at all focused and taking care of them well. And the oldest sister is either 16 or 17, and they're just waiting until she gets to the right age so that she can be the legal guardian of her younger sister. There's a neighbor who kind of notices that things are going on, and he keeps, asking where her parents are and stuff like that. And one of the things that I thought was funny about this book is that the younger sister, she has a mental disability, although it's not clear exactly what it is, and you see this perspective between the older sister and the younger sister, where the older sister is worried that the younger sister is going to crack and tell people that their parents, are not alive and that they're in the backyard. And so she's constantly worried about the younger sister and underestimates her, whereas the younger sister, when you read the passages from her perspective, because it alternates, she is hilarious, and she's looking at her older sister who is walking around manifesting all of this worry and doing different things and hanging out with friends at night and stuff, and she's worried. She thinks her sister's gonna crack, that her older sister is not logical at all. So it's just like a wonderful perspective between the two of them, both of them trying to cover for the situation, and both of them worried that the other one is gonna be the one that cracks, and their neighbor who takes care of them. All right, then I've got Grasshopper Jungle by Andrew Smith. This one was a Prince honor about 2 years ago, and we've been passing around this book around the office a whole lot. It's called Grasshopper Jungle, a history. There's kind of like a toxic ooze that gets loose, and then these giant grasshoppers are like running wild in the town. There's a guy and his best friend, his girlfriend, and they're just trying to basically keep themselves alive, and it's just like a really funny, snarky book. I thought that I recommend it frequently to people who work here, and that's why you can see we've got some stains here. It's a little beat up because we keep passing it around. All right, and then the last thing I have here, I have a picture because the book is checked out, and so the last book I wanted to show you is Beauty Queens by Libba Bray. And the way that you might describe this is like a plane full of beauty queens, like Miss Teen USA, I believe, crash land on a desert island, so kind of like Lord of the Flies. And I thought it was hilarious because each one of the beauty queens is from a different state, and they all have different personalities, and some of them are really into it, like Miss Texas, and some of them are there kind of tongue-in-cheek, like not making fun, but they're there to kind of get the inside scoop of the competition. There's a girl who wants to be a reporter and write like an expose, and they constantly kind of have to work together and also work against each other. And then much like Lord of the Flies, there's something else that's going on the island. There's a lot of commentary about commercialism, and it turned out to be, I was surprised, I don't know why I was surprised, but it was just a really amazing feminist novel that was also hilarious and had a lot to say about commercialism and stuff like that. And then I also pulled this to show you. It's a comic strip. So what I mentioned earlier, one of the books that I love, or the groups of books that I love, is from the Unshelved guys, right? And one of the things they do, they put their comic strips all the time, and sometimes they'll make a comic strip where they kind of talk about a book by making a comic of the book. And so this one they did for Beauty Queens by Libba Bray, and it says, when a plane load of pageant contestants crashes on a secluded island, the few survivors at first assume the corporation will quickly track down and rescue them. That doesn't happen. The girls pull together, revealing their hidden strengths. They fight off giant snakes, avoid starvation, and deal with the evil plot hatched in the secret lair at the heart of the island's volcano. What seems at first like a bunch of airheads reenacting Lord of the Flies turns out to be a moving feminist action-adventure where sequins meet semi-automatics. They can do anything except perhaps resist the charms of reality TV rock star pirates. So we read this book in our employee book club, and we really enjoyed it about 2 summers ago. So I wanted to share that with you, as well as all of the others. We'll take a look and see what final questions we've got, and I also want to see if anybody got the answer to the, take a look and see if anybody got an answer to the joke from before. I should have told you guys what the answer was, but oh, somebody recommended a Jackie Beth Fish in a Tree for dyslexia. Thank you. All right, from Sarisha Parapu, any good nonfiction series for 4th, 5th graders or elementary school? Any good nonfiction series on history? My son loves books on Egyptian history, etc. So nonfiction books, Egyptian history. The first thing that comes to my mind is actually fiction. It's Rick Riordan's series, The Kane Chronicles, which focuses on Egyptian history, and also Michael Northrop has Tomb Quest series, which has Egyptian mythology involved in it. Nonfiction series. There's the Who Was series. There's like Who Was, Who Is, Who Are. The Who Was, within the Who Was series, they do have a book about Tutankhamun that might be an interesting one, and it's right at that grade level. They're usually books about specific people, so they're kind of biographies, and the Who Was are for people who are past, and Who Is are for people who are currently around. I have to think about that one. I'll put something in the comments, but first recommendation is Who Was Tutankhamun. All right, from Thaisa Cruz, she said, I read to my 7-year-old every night. He has autism. Any books that are good for him? All right, I'll have to take a look for that one too. I know that we have a book called Same But Different, which is by Holly Robinson Peete. And that is actually a chapter book. It's a little older, that's written by her daughter, and her son. Her son has autism. He's a teenager now. There's a book they wrote prior to that called My Brother Charlie, which is also written by her and her children, and is from the perspective of the daughter, talking about her brother. I think that we made a list a while ago on a blog of books that feature children that are autistic, or books that would be interesting to children who are autistic. So let me take a look and see if I can find that list and post it in the comments and answer to that. But the first one I'm thinking of for somebody around that age would be the My Brother Charlie. I mean, and the other, somebody asked me about this actually recently too. The other possibility is, I think, with is to see what they're interested in particular, because sometimes like finding books that have a particular interest and getting a lot of books on that topic, or something that would be kind of, you know, just letting them to really dive into a topic that captures their interest. So there are a lot of nonfiction books that may not be the same as reading a chapter book front to back, but you can get like Ripley's Believe It or Not, the Guinness Book of World Records, and you know, any of the Discover More series and stuff like that. And then once you find what kind of topic that they're interested in particular, you can just really let them do a deep dive, and you know, go to the library, go to the nonfiction section. You know, if they're into sports, that might be in the 790s, or if they're into you know, cooking, that might be in the 600s or something like that. And you can just let them kind of, you know, work their way through the entire library shelf with the nonfiction topic that they're interested in. Oh yes, Jackie Beth commented on Beauty Queens that the audiobook is awesome. I agree completely. That is one of the things that sold me on reading Beauty Queens. There was a woman who used to shelve here in the library, and she would put an audiobook on while she was shelving just to have something playing while she was downstairs. And I remember going downstairs to get a book and hearing a particular chapter midway through the book playing, and not having her the beginning or the end, just hearing that one section of the book, I knew that I had to pick it up and read it. And for our book club, many people did listen to the audiobook too. And what is a good funny series for 4th graders? And so I think the Dear Dumb Diary is the series that I had pulled out that was in that age range here. And then also the James Patterson, I Funny, there's I Funnier, I Funniest. He also has Middle School, The Worst Years of My Life. And any of the Gordon Corman books that are the Bruno and Boots series, Slacker, and Ungifted, which is this one here. Ungifted is where a kid kind of gets into trouble and his name gets put on a list and put on the superintendent's desk, and then that list accidentally gets taken over to the gifted and talented school, and kind of, like hijinks ensue because he's a fish out of water, which is something that Gordon Corman frequently does. He also has another book called Schooled. So I realized that a lot of his books are set in middle grade. He has a Swindle series. Each book has a different dog on the cover. But a lot of times people like to read up. So if you have people in 4th and 5th and 6th grade reading up about things that take place in middle school, then that's kind of, like even middle schoolers like to read about high school and stuff like that. So I think they would enjoy those. And all right, so the joke from Jokes to Go, cell phone jokes for you and your friends, was, what do you call the security guards at the Samsung store? And the answer is Guardians of the Galaxy. I know, it's very corny, but I like it. So if you have any questions, feel free to continue to put them in the comment section below, and make sure you check scholastic.com/parents so that you can see the list that we'll have up there on the blog, which is called Raising a Reader. And thank you for joining us this month for Funny Books. I hope you had a good time.